Hey, thanks for these nice words, DJ. Um, yeah, so I need to share. Sorry, it's here. And you see my slide now, right?
Yeah, excellent.
Okay. Yeah, DJ, it's always fun detecting stuff together with you. Also, when I prepared the slides, I detected, as you can see in my full name, I'm a secret fan of DJ. And also in my job titles, there's some hidden secret, which I only detected this night when I did the slides as usual on latest minute. Yeah, and I have around 30 slides, so I need to, have a look at the timer, which I start now. Yeah, so this is the agenda, and I thought I look at the whole world of CAP, and seeing from my perspective, CAP's perspective, the center of the world, of course, is CAP core, and then comes some stuff we have to connect to around us, and then more stuff around us, the periphery from our perspective, and then comes the most important part, which is stakeholders, projects, customers using CAP. And I have been told before the conference that people asked for giving some insight on how is the adoption of CAP within SAP and outside of SAP. I think to understand or to get some idea whether CAP is still a tiny little plant or if it is really here to stay. And I will do it outside in, but start with like a recap of what is CAP. And I think you have seen this slide, so I do it rather fast forward. If the middle is about building an application, and usually developers would have to do a lot to fulfill all these blue circles. And then also, quite frequently developers tend to have their preferences, sometimes also beliefs, what is the best technology, and then they start with struggles, pick different languages, which they later on need to integrate, or technologies, etc. And when they've built the first application, then they are faced with the classical cloud qualities, which are not that easy to do, actually. And quite some project I've seen made it to release 1, but not to release 2. And yeah, as we all know, this slide here, this is CAP, or said in other words, if you think about people having to do some tedious tasks, like pulling stones, then CAP is like this car to them, meant to be at least. But sometimes, they make you feel bad. So this is also CAP. Now, the adoption. I think we can say CAP is being used, and starting with external adoption. There's this flying window here, which I have to put away. External customers. Based on the number of tickets we see, because this is the only measure we have, there seems to be like 80 customers or more than 80 customers running CAP-based projects, so not using CAP-based products. There are more of them in addition, but they are actively using CAP. And they are the ones sending us tickets in BCP. Plus, as we learn every now and then, we have a high number of unknown projects, which we learn to know. So maybe it's already more than 100 or even more than that. Yeah, of different size, and about 300 customer tickets last year in BCP. In Answer Subcom, we see currently more than 1,300 questions. many of them, by the way, answered by you, by the community, which is really great. And I want to thank you for that. So this is really what community is about, and relieves us few CAP developers within SAP quite a lot, of course. We try to join answering that as well, but yeah, doing a great job here. And the 400 blocks, the vast majority is basically from you. I remember I have written exactly one blog about CAP so far. I plan to do some more now. And all of that is with increasing trends. Now, the internal situation. So SAP projects using CAP. And we have a wiki page where we ask the projects to register, but a similar situation, some do. But then again, we meet authors who tell us we just went live with the CAP-based application and we didn't even hear about them, which is cool because then they didn't have major problems. Yeah, more than 100 active CAP projects within SAP. Most of them, of course, build SaaS solutions where customers subscribe then and need multi-tenant mode. Just to name a few here, highlighted, which are live already. You can Google the names and likely find things. And on the right-hand side, we have a mix of Java Node and most used Fiori v4, the latest version. The topmost one is v2 because they wanted to build a very high fidelity UI in the very beginning of CAP when v4 was not, so from the Fiori side, not up to feature readiness of v2. The screenshot on the right hand side is from that, and we just learned the last weeks. In the 2 months they are out, they are making real money, which is also a nice thing. Yeah, so these applications are rather big ones, actually. Usually, some of them are microservice networks, some of them are monoliths. That one is rather a monolith with 1,000 entities and more. This is actually a suite of application in the global risk and compliance unit. That one is also rather a monolith, and others are microservice networks. Yeah. The bad thing about adoption is you get a lot of issues and support messages coming in, currently around 70 per week in total since CAP exists, which is close to 4 years now, 4,000. But of course, 40%, I just had a look at the statistics, are mostly questions. 30% are feature requests and no bug reports, of course, because now next is the periphery. So these was the customers, and now looking at other technology things around CAP. And the good news is CAP is not alone. Starting with the key user extensibility, and we have a demo by Stefan Blamberg from the UI5 team and showing us how key users can extend in future models and CAP solutions using UI flags. So Stefan, handing over to you.
All right, thanks Daniel. And also hello from my side. I'm Stefan. I'm a developer in the UI5 flexibility area, and I'm happy to show you a quick demo of the brand new field extensibility on CAP, which we are developing in collaboration with the CAP team. So let's jump right in, and I'm going to share my screen. All right. So here you can see the good old S-Flight demo application. And my goal is now, I'm a key user, so I don't really have any developer experience. And I want to extend this application and add new functionality to it. So let me quickly head to the detail page. Let's pick a travel which is in the future, like this one. And I now want, due to the current situation, I want to add 2 new fields to this travel section right here. So I want to add a flag to check if a test is required. for this travel. And also I want to add a date when this traveling person is going to return to the office if there's a quarantine after the travel. And in order to do this, I can use the flexibility tools and the key user adaptation. So I'm going to click on Adapt UI, and we are then entering the adaptation mode. So here I can basically make changes to the UI by moving fields around or renaming stuff, and also by adding new fields, which is exactly what I want to do. So let's click here. As you can see, there are currently no fields available. So let's create one. And this is the new feature. So basically I have the opportunity to define the configuration and also the annotations of a brand new field right here in the UI. First of all, I can select the entity type, and I have this pre-selected type here, which is basically the one which is bound in the form. And I could switch it, but for this demo, this is fine. So let's give it a name like PCR test, for example, and we can also add a label which is going to map to the appropriate annotation. Let's do this right now. And now the thing is, I can switch the type of this field. And based on this type, I see all the relevant configuration options. So for example, if I have a string here, then I could, for instance, define a regular expression for a value check, or I could define some values which are allowed, like the enum values as an input validation, stuff like that. And in this case, I want to have a simple Boolean flag and don't need any of these annotations. So we're good to go here. I'm going to click on create. And let's add our second field as well, which is now a date field. Yeah, let's call it quarantine and okay, so here I have a few more options. So for example, the range, which was previously an enum for the string type, is now like a lower and upper bound for this data input validation. And yeah, since COVID started in 2020, I can quickly select this date. And let's be optimistic here and say we don't need any quarantines after December. So here we go. And I could even, if I wanted to, I could even add further annotations, which are not supported by any dedicated editors right now. By clicking on this Add Annotation button, then you can basically add whatever annotation you want and define a value as a JSON. So this gives the users full flexibility even in these early stages of development. But right now I don't need this. We're good to go. I can actually let me mark it as mandatory. Doesn't really make sense from a business point of view, but it's still nice to show this. And let's create this field as well. All right, so as I'm in my local setup, I quickly need to restart my CDS watch here. And then the both fields will be available for me as a key user to add to the UI. So I'm going to refresh the application really quickly. And now if I start the key user adaptation for the second time, I have two more fields available. So if I again click in my form here and add a field, you can see the two new fields which I just created. And I add them, simply click on save and exit. And now I successfully adapted UI. And whenever we now edit this entry, I can set my PCR test required. And you can see we have this new mandatory field, return from quarantine. If I was to select some invalid value, then I get the error message, the appropriate error message. And if it's valid, then I can successfully save my draft. So this concludes this short demonstration. Hope you liked it, and stay tuned for some really cool features which are still to come. And back to you, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. And thanks for the great collaboration that we had with Fiori team. I am sharing. It's really confusing, this flyovers here. Yeah, maybe telling you a bit about what happens behind the scenes. So the Fiori UI Flex tool was greatly enhanced, first of all, by the dialogue, having these specific standard fields for usual CAP annotations, and we will add some more likely. And what happens behind the scenes, a request is sent to the CAP server. By the way, in there, we implemented this endpoint for this request as a CAP service. So we are increasingly using CAP to build CAP. And that CAP service has an event handler that takes this information, generates at runtime a season model that expresses the equivalent of extend foo with bar. Plus it looks at all intermediate entities from the surface given by the UI down the view stack, which could be tens of view. In that case, we had 3 views on top of the table entity and the entity of the table, and actually creates these 4 extend statements in CDS season. Then it calls the compiler at runtime with a base model plus these extensions. So it's applied in the model, recalculates the EDMX that is refreshed to the client, and currently stores field in a property bag JSON approach in order to be a fast, so HANA deployment or add column to HANA is much slower, and B, to be undoable, so to allow undo and throw away things and restart. And it works also with SQLite only locally in that case. And it also works with HANA later on. And then we have these different options to say, well, I'm fine with a property bag, or I do a document store like Martin, you did in Rising, or I do a real HANA hardened out model, because then I get the best SQL support, of course, or whatever of the database. Yeah, so thanks again for this great collaboration. About 4 people from UI Flex, UI 5 side working on that in very close collaboration with Nick and Vitali from our side mainly. And within 2 months, we got to that stage that we see now, and are currently making up the productization plans, which will be definitely this year, maybe this quarter. Yeah, another great collaboration you have seen likely already in this Twitter announcement. S-Flight, the famous S-Flight known from ABAP to many of you likely, has been ported to CAP now, and we work together again with Fiori colleagues, Fiori Element colleagues, UI5 colleagues, and with the ABAP colleagues, which was really a great collaboration. Started in beginning Q2 this year and finished that also just a few weeks back. Next steps will be, we want to showcase not only how to do Fiori development, so that's a major reason, not that much how to do CAP development, but rather how to do Fiori development on top of CAP, in particular to give samples about the Fiori annotations. And we want also to showcase how to deploy applications on a regular basis, subscribe to them, etc. So for us, it's the tryout thing. And as Gregor also shared recently in Twitter, what you also see, the Fiori colleagues and the UI5 colleagues started to, besides the ABAP annotation, which is like the king in the room, they started to add CAP CDS annotation examples, which is a great thing. And yeah, an indication that CAP is not alone anymore. We increasingly attract contributions by other parties and collaboration, and enjoy this. Another very cool example was this analytical table. So it's like embedded analytics in Fiori elements. And Adrian from our Java team just sent it to me. The Java logo here means it's currently implemented in Java only for CAP. So sometimes it's also okay to use Java, you know, as we mentioned the Node.js and Java thing in the beginning. Yeah, sometimes Java is ahead, sometimes Node is ahead. And in this case, definitely Java is ahead. And behind of that thing, there's a lot of work happening on the database layer, as you can imagine. Yeah, it starts with, first of all, what is it? It allows you to build groups, which are collapsible, expandable, which have subtotals or sub-aggregates, more general, have grand totals in the bottom, allow things like multi-unit detection by the client based on annotations we have, counts, of course, the actual leaf data, and then this configurable grouping. So it means you can click on something and change your grouping in the UI. And this is fueled by the usual pattern. You mainly have to add these annotations. Likely some of you know them already more or less from the ABAP world. They have been added now also in our world and been implemented in sense of the Java runtime interprets this and translates these OData v4 $apply queries to best possible SQL statements to serve these requests out of the box. That was quite a lot of work on request by a big customer, and started last year, end of last year, together with a few other colleagues to work on this, both sides, client as well as server, and delivered the first version in February, I think it was, and pretty far now in that thing. Of course, you also know that we have the Business Application Studio, usually supporting CAP. From the very beginning, they did very much. And that increases even more. So starting with the project storyboard we see on the left side, which is also quite, CAP language. The data models are CAP data models, services are CAP services, UI applications are Fiori applications. Then we see not only file explorer and source files, but we see the logical structure in this CAP explorer. You know, I'm a fan of VS Code, but this is something that I really miss in VS Code. And by the way, I also missed something like a storyboard. I'm also a user of a MacBook doing Xcode development, and Xcode development starts with a storyboard. It's quite a nice thing to depict and sketch what you plan to do. Then we have the CAP runners. What I like here is this little plug signs telling you about the binding status of a required service. And this is also a very important visualization that we lack, and it's hard to communicate in documentation. So CAP is much about services, our own services, the services that you build, plus the services that you require, the database or the messaging service or a remote S4 service. And of course, the required services need to be bound. And this is the basic vocabulary. It's services required or provided, and services need to be bound to call each other, etc. And this illustrates it and assists a lot in that. Yeah, then we have the project wizard and the Fiori application wizard, and also Fiori elements tools didn't fit on this page, but I mentioned Fiori 2 times now. There's much more collaboration. Yeah, and going low code, no code, there's quite some activity you might have seen signs of already. There's much more behind the scenes. And one of that is this graphical modeler, also integrated in the Business Application Studio, that allows increasingly cool things. For example, the latest things not shown here is how to model a view and how to remember what CAP allows you to do. It just allows you this tool now to expand along an association, pick some fields, and voila, you get a very complex view, which you maybe didn't even have the idea that you could write this because you don't know about all the language features. And this is what tools make really a good contribution, a very important contribution to get you there. And then from there, you can go on if you need to with coding. So it means our low code, no code approach with CAP is not you are trapped in the point and clicking thing, but you can always extend along the continuum to being professional coder, doing simple things like copy and paste even in code. Yeah, and that is another example of a graphical modeler. The funny thing is, we only learned about that in the data warehouse cloud, the modeler that they had since years was completely sort of re-implemented on the basis to be fully based on season. And we learned this only 2 years ago when we visited them in Paris. And the next time we met them, a few months later, we learned that they even use the CAP CDS compiler to translate their data warehouse cloud models into data warehouse physical structures similar to HANA DDL. Yeah, this was quite cool to hear, but of course it also gives us now quite some additional requirements to support native features of the database. But yeah, also a very cool thing that things like this just happen outside. I had a slide about ABAP, but I wasn't able to finish it. We also have a close collaboration with the ABAP guys, the RAP guys, and the CDS guys, of course. CAP is actually, the origin of CAP is season, and season was invented as a exchange format for CDS models between ABAP CDS, HANA CDS, and nowadays CAP CDS. Yeah, in the CAP-centric world, from adoption to periphery now to connectivity. So what are we doing from the CAP side? But also increasingly, not only we, but also the others. This is our new picture, and I will very quickly try to go through it and not have much detail. So it's just teasers, and reach out if you're more interested. On that picture, you might see this tiny little blue box, which is actually nothing that we did, but a colleague in SAP from the SME unit contributed just 2 weeks ago, just a TS node support, which I didn't even know exists, but obviously allows you now to code all your server.js, all your service implementations in TypeScript instead of JavaScript, and it is compiled on the fly. So this is just for you to code in that. In the afternoon, no, in the morning before the lunch break, Simon and Michael will give us some more insight in TypeScript support. Teasing or cheating, no, it's about translating CDS models, I think, to TypeScript, which we don't have so far. Yeah, then on the front-end side, we already talked about UI5 Fiori, and there are many more collaboration things and contribution things. A lot from the tools. I think you have also seen some on the UI5 Con. Then analytics, we just saw the embedded analytics, and analytics also data warehouse cloud, and also the SAP Analytics Cloud is based on season, and we are currently working on integrating them more out of box. Workflow now started to asynchronous connected way means resilient connected way. Audit logging is very important, and project had real issues when the audit logging service was down. The whole business was down because you are not allowed to continue without audit logging. Now, what we try to do is reliable but resilient audit logging. Audit logging can be down. We care for collecting everything and delivering it to the audit logging service right in time. Identity and authentication management is improving, so the ugly token exchange and the expensive token exchange is being replaced by better things, which in case of you would have done that manually, coded manually against this, you would have headaches now. CAP-based projects get this change for free because they are not on that level. And we are working on the authorization level, but that goes too far. Event mesh we connected. David will show a demo in the afternoon, and we have some works also on the database side, and I have an extra slide on that. And we also have invested now in observability, so we have out-of-the-box support for Dynatrace and Kibana without you or the projects having to do their own logging stuff. And the final one is the gray box. We already last year, Uwe Klinger wrote this blog, and behind this blog is a lot of work to bring CAP on Kuma, and we will continue this and pick it just up together with the Kuma colleagues to make this in an out-of-box thing. And the other thing, and part of it is making sure that we are even more independent of a specific platform, including SAP platforms in general. Databases, because that's a thing that is frequently discussed. Very important. CAP is not logged into any database and never will. But of course, we do provide out-of-the-box support for some databases, because if we would not do so, nobody would use CAP. And you know, we do provide support for HANA, for production, SQLite, and H2, mainly for development. You can also use it for some production scenarios, but definitely not, we should not do it for this high critical business processes. Regarding Postgres, we had a long discussion, and it will definitely go on, but the decision, not by us, is we go for ASE as the alternative to the full HANA. And this is with enterprise support and with optimization. The important thing on that side is also, and you know, we have ABAP fighting for years to optimize for DB2, Oracle, HANA, SQL Server, some other. And doing that and optimizing for all these databases is simply not possible. And this is why ABAP decided already last century, they sort of marginalize the database. They don't even use what databases are good in. This is why ABAP had a lot of things built independent on top of database, even calculations with numbers, because having that A, portable, and B, optimized for each database, not even those ABAP guys and ABAP platform guys would have been able to solve. And we spent really a lot together with database vendors, IBM, Oracle, etc. So it's simply not possible to optimize for more than a few databases only. So if you ask us, so CAP, please give us Postgres support, MongoDB support, MariaDB support, SQL Server support, Oracle support, etc., then it's clear we cannot do that, even if I would love to do it. Nobody can do it. So instead, we will increasingly make it easy as possible for others to plug in, like you did it from the community for Postgres. And I really like this and find this good, and I want to support it more. If open source, if community, if contribution is true, then this is a great way to do it. And sometimes I'm puzzled then to hear in like, yeah, same context, well, we want CAP to be open for contributions, but CAP doesn't even provide a Postgres SQL driver from the CAP team, from SAP itself. This, of course, is like a contradiction. So, but this also points out the things in the SAP universe. I think customers expect software they use for critical processes to be delivered by SAP, sometimes at least, not by third parties. Maybe they're partners, but not by any third party. And this is, of course, a hard business environment for contribution. But nevertheless, I think we should teach that even more and develop that even more. And our job from CAP, I see making CAP even more pluggable. And this is actually what we are working on. So we call that internally NEDB. Part of it is schema evolution. The hardest part of supporting different databases is actually schema evolution. We invested in that. Lothar will show a demo. We support HDI today and designed it in a way that we can plug in or connect it to liquid-based flyway, or somebody else could do so. Yeah, CAP is improving. I think I'm running out of time, so I'm speeding up. Sometimes, we cannot only work on features, author grade stuff, but we also have to work on quality. And when we do so, maybe you don't even recognize anything because you only recognize the bugs you encounter, but not the bugs you don't encounter. We invested a lot actually from February on to increase our test coverage, to remove lines of code coverage because this is just stupid, and real functional coverage. Invested a lot in throwing away our pipelines and create some new with a different pipeline technology to have them streamlined and fast, because tests which don't run because they are so slow don't help anybody. Yeah, and we invested a lot and do still invest a lot in refactoring. And sometimes, like in CDS5, you see some regressions due to our test coverage was not as it should have been, and due to refactoring. Refactoring is very important for getting to quality. If we don't refactor, we would end up in what UI5 ended up a few years ago. They re-implemented the whole stack in a big redesign in the sky, which is always a bad approach. And we all struggle still from V2, V4 feature parity issues. Yeah, performance optimizations, we did a lot. We had this one customer which had 5,000 requests per second as a KPI, and we reached that on the cloud platform. We are at 50,000 requests per second, doing nothing, but just measuring the framework overhead in comparison to a very tiny plain express thing. And we are on par, and this is good news. Memory consumption we reduced by a factor of 10, which is very important for massive multi-tenancy applications, like the SAP projects I shared in the slide in the beginning. Then databases, messaging, logging, mocking, MTX itself, and more are increasingly now built as CAP services. So again, eating our dog food. And the effect is we make sure that CAP works also for these different scenarios. And for you, it means you can extend our database implementation, our messaging implementation, our logging, our mocking, our MTX by just adding event handlers as you would usually do. Christian Georgi will show us CDS lint and Lothar pluggable CDS build, which is both another way for us opening up for you to plug in things, or for our customer stakeholders in general, adding own lint rules, very specific ones, plugging in the build process, in the compile process, etc. And same, as I already said, with schema evolution. Now, I really have to speed up. I have like 3 minutes left. This is about the core of CAP, and the core of CAP is really about these things. It's about services, events, and queries. And the core of CAP is 300 lines of code. And this is very important. Everything in CAP is a service, including, as I just mentioned, our own implementation of the framework. Adding a new database driver was for you still more work than it should be and will be end of this year, because we will clean up the database layer in addition to make it really the case to implement a database driver like for SQLite if it wouldn't be there. It's like implementing a CAP service. And the next thing is service consumption. You know, service consumption is out there, but it's not really GA ready. There were still a lot of glitches. So we are now in the process of really broadening the corridors, that the glitches are not there anymore, and making sure we roll it out and there is no major gaps. And this is now a major focus of this month and weeks, because that is at the heart of real business solutions. So CAP being used to extend something. The next thing is the green part of it. It's the asynchronous part. And the very important thing here is message progress behind the scenes. You should not have to struggle for this, because then we can move you to the next level of new message progress. Today we have event mesh. We might have at Kafka, some projects do already with CAP and things like that. And querying, yeah, I don't have time to go in detail. People underestimate the value of querying. Queries and view building is the only reason why we are able to do generic providers. Without that, no way to do that, which is also depicted on this comparison slide, comparing GraphQL or data and CDSQL in a sense of query languages. GraphQL actually, and I really played around with the Apollo framework and stuff, it's shocking poor. You have to program everything, even filters and sorting and pagination doesn't exist, which of course our data has. And the major difference is we have view building. We know how a request to an interface is translated to a request to an underlying entity, to a request to even an underlying entity, which could be in a database or a remote service. Without that knowledge, no way to do generic handlers. Yeah, CAP is growing up now very, very fast. We are now close to being 4 years old. I think we can say CAP is quite established meanwhile. We are receiving increasingly positive feedback, not only from you, community guys, which was really great from the beginning, but also now increasingly internally in CAP, in SAP, sorry, and also from management, upper management. Was really surprised to hear Jürgen Müller on the last TechEd and was not prepared about this, was not involved. So also backing from management. We are, I think, beyond the critical mass in adoption and attention. We enjoy this great collaboration with other units at CAP, and this was just a selection with the Fiori colleagues and the Tools colleagues and warehouse, etc. We are meanwhile actually at the centerpiece, a centerpiece of several activities, strategic activities in BTP, you could say. So we are not the ugly kid anymore, but yeah, something else. And maybe this is the first time we have something what could be called an end-to-end programming model successfully established in SAP after ABAP, maybe. The big fish is ABAP. So I have to stop soon. Just to finalize, how did we get there? From the beginning, we said, no, we don't want to build technology. We want to build something that we are asked to do so. And we want to make sure whenever we do so, it's adopted immediately. So usually the negotiation goes like that. You stakeholder request something from us and want a commitment for delivery. We only give it to you with a commitment of adoption from your side to have the reality check. Because my belief is, and our belief is, you can only build these things right if they are really used in real projects, not just in POCs and bookshops. Yeah, and the last thing is a very important one, which I repeated from the beginning to all manager and to all authors. It's about focus. If we defocus, then we are screwed. So staying focused is key. Brings me to sort of the very last slide, open source. Let's talk in with a beer, but not right now. Just to mention this, right now is these months, maybe later, but not right now. And this is because of that one. CAP is actually torn. And remember the focus thing, right? If you look at what a side-by-side extension software by a customer for themselves need, they need best integrated to the SAP system, to SuccessFactors, S4, etc., etc., etc. They also want low-code, no-code. They also want serverless because they don't care about deployment and operations. And they want SAP support and SLAs for this SAP support, which is, by the way, the opposite of open source. And they even sometimes want commercial software because they want somebody to sue in case of question. SaaS solutions need multi-tenancy. Side-by-side extensions don't need multi-tenancy. Key user extensibility, very important for SaaS solution, not for side-by-side because they are tailor-made. They need also integration with the platform services, red bar on the right-hand side on this graphic. And when we need SaaS solution, we as CAP definitely have to go for principle of one. So one hardware, one database, one UI, one hyperscaler. This is what Salesforce did to get successful, competitive. Otherwise, you're screwed. Yeah, and now the fun thing is I hate this game on the right-hand side. I like this game on the left-down-hand side. And definitely, I think this is the right things to do. CAP is designed for open source. You know what I think about open source, and I want open source, and I believe in open source, in alternative DBs and UIs, and I will never let it happen to get rid of that. And broad platform activity, I think Tobias will talk about this. Yeah, and we have to look in order to not get defocused and torn into pieces. What is the subset that maybe serves all in a certain amount of time and in a sequence of focus topics. We cannot focus on everything at the same time. So I think fast and low cost development that we achieved serves all. I think service consumption and messaging, definitely all of them need. I think reuse and composition is the very next thing that we focus on, will serve all. And I think all would even prefer openness and flexibility over the software is free and open source. If the software is bad and open source, and the quality is bad, and the scalability is bad, and the extensibility is bad, what does it give you to be open source? And this is an important thing. We anyways
I have to step in. I have to step in at this point. I'm sorry, Daniel, because thank you.
Yeah.
I'm crying a little, of course, mentioning the open source part, not right now, but thank you for all the insight into CAP. Thank you for your commitment to the community and for the community.